Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Poison Wind Mortars is for children. Death Globes Mortars, now that is where the money's at. As we have Skaven versus the Dark Elves, as we have Way on the Skaven side, and Cry is Free will be commanding the Dark Elf forces. So for the Skaven, it is going to be the Avalanche Mortars, the the Poisoned Wind ROR, so they will be given that purple rain across against the Dark Elves. They'll be flanked by a pair of rattling guns, good anti-air unit, and then a couple of rat ogres in the back for just a little bit of extra added mass. For the Lord, it is going to be a Grey Seer of Plague, and he is going to be bringing... We have the Warp Storm Scroll, so a nice ability to kind of damage some of those flying units, particularly against Harpies is what this is brought for. We also have Vermintide, we have Unholy Clamor, and then we have the Bound Scorch and the Wall of Unholy Sound. For the, the quick mobility and a little bit of terror, we do have a Packmaster up on his Broodhor. He does have the Scrying Stone. Going to be giving himself +8 leadership and 22 damage resistance for a nice little duration, and only has a 60-second cooldown, so that's pretty nice for that. We have a Warlock Engineer, which is going to be bringing the Warpstone Armor, which is going to be given that pretty much an AoE Mortis Engine Drain. Just say he is a little squishy, but still that Mortis Engine Drain cannot be valued high enough. We have the Howling Warp Gale as well for the only spell on this guy. Again, just to kind of contend the Dark Elves, they do tend to go a little bit more with that range, so like Harpies, Manticores, and things like that are fairly common against the Skaven, especially when you do have a bunch of weapons teams, just to kind of keep them nice and safe. In the front line, it is going to be Night Runners, and then it is going to be Skaven Slaves for the front line, and a few on the flanks, and we have one Clan Rat Spears in the back line. For the Dark Elves, we already have one of the Dark Riders taken some quite heavy losses, as those Avalanche Mortars and those Rattling Guns are going to be doing quite a number on them early on. And then just plenty more Dark Riders across the board. We have the Slaanesha's Harvesters, which do have the Bound Soul Stealer and Word of Pain. We have the Dark Riders with repeater crossbows. We have a few units of those. We have the Rakarth's Ravagers, or the Ravagers of Rakarth, and they'll be given some nice little bit of poison with their missile attacks for their being their ROR. We have a Screen Sorceress to fire up in this guy, going to be bringing, it looks like we have Burning Head, Fireball, and it looks like we have Flaming Sword as well, giving that magic damage and the fire damage, especially with some regenerating units being so prevalent. We have Bleak Swords for the front line, though. Pretty much just cheap units trying to just get through the Skaven Slaves pretty quickly. And the Chill of Sontar for a little bit of terror. Also has that nice little breath attack as well. And it does have a nice little bit of healing to add in that regard. But that is going to be it for the armies. So let's get things rolling as the Purple Rain going to be raining right on down on the Dark Elves, doing quite a bit of damage so far. And we have an early Soul Stealer as well, going to be going off, hitting these Night Runners. Almost going to be clipping the Rattling Guns as well, but it does also hit the Grey Seer. Not the best cast, could have easily hit quite a few units there with that cast, even with that. And we do have a nice Burning Head, which is going to be able to be dodged for the most part, as the Skaven are on top of things, able to dodge most of that incoming fire, and the Rattling Guns are just given a wall of lead against these repeater crossbows, doing a bunch of damage there. And now they'll be turning their attention to that Supreme Sorceress of Fire. I'm fairly certain in any second getting nice in range of that Howling Warp Gale, and both of these Rattling Guns going to make a nice clean target up in the sky, but we are going to be getting a summon in the meantime, going to be slowing down the approach of the Bleak Sword. And there is actually, no, the shot's still going to be raining in against the Ravagers, as the Purple Rain arcing more and more shots, going to be making more landfall against these Dark Riders, doing a bunch of damage, especially against the repeater crossbows. A very nice unit to be getting off the field. We do have a little nice rear charge in, though, by the Dark Riders on the backside, as they are able to get onto these Rat Ogres, and they're making rather quick work of them, and they'll soon be able to jump on top of these Rattling Guns. Some of the Skaven Slaves are going to be turning to try and peel them off, and the Packmaster is going to be charging forth on his Broodhor, again just trying to keep these Dark Riders away, and the shots from those Poison Winds, or the Death Globes, doing quite a bit of damage, landing in against these Dark Riders, doing a bit of friendly fire, but for the most part the Skaven Slaves are definitely acceptable losses. A second Burning Head, this time going to be actually making some connection with the Skaven Slaves and these Night Runners, going to be routing off both units by the looks of things. And we do get that Howling Warp Gale, which is going to be shutting down that Supreme Sorcerer Fire, keeping her nice and held down. It is overcasted, so it does have a rather long duration when it is cast, and that is going to allow these Rattling Guns to just kind of tee up. But they are a little bit at range. The closer that Supreme Sorcerer gets, the more dangerous she's going to be in. But these Rattling Guns instead are going to be making sure that these Dark Riders are going to be dealt with, and more of the Dark Riders on the flanks going to be getting shut down, but they have been able to get rid of at least one of the Rattling Guns, as they are able to get on top of them. But that Packmaster and the remaining units doing a fairly decent job of keeping things at bay. The Gracier has taken a little bit of damage early on, and this Warlock Engineer is just sitting very content in the middle of all these weak swords, slowly draining them down. Nothing to really threaten him. I mean, the Chill of Sontar is probably the only thing that can actually kind of kill the Warlock Engineer reliably, and especially with that drain, it's just going to be doing quite a bit of damage to those bleak swords. The Repeater Crossbows are starting to get some more damage, and now the Rattling Guns seeing a target getting nice and close right into the line of fire, and that Chill of Sontar is a fantastic target for them, just able to get plenty of good hits in. And the Supreme Sorcerer is going to be diving down on top of these Avalanche Mortars, but they have gotten off so many shots so far this match. They've been able to get a ton of damage racked up, and that Chill of Sontar is sitting a little low on regards for health. Definitely going to be needed, but those Rattling Guns are just going to be having the time of their lives, getting in plenty of hits, as that leadership is going to break on that Chill of Sontar, doing a bunch of damage there, and we are going to be getting a nice little Scorch going right on down, going to be finishing off these Bleak Swords, and with them gone, I think that is going to be just about army losses. The only thing holding it really is that Supreme Sorceress, and she is in a rather rough spot, especially now that another Howling Warp Gale, overcasted as well, is going to be going down, keeping her locked down in place, unable to really escape. And these Rat Ogres are going to be getting in a nice bit of damage. Night Runner's a few shots in as well, but that is going to be all she wrote for the Dark Elves. Skaven going to be cleaning on up, as the last of the shots going to be raining in. Again, just landing in some Skaven slaves, but that is going to be just about it. A little bit more damage dealt to these units is going to be all it takes to push that army losses. Don't really see a good way for them coming back. Chill Sontar might be able to heal up if it does return, but I mean, the Packmaster is at full health. Poison Wind and all these ranged units are sitting very nice in terms of ammunition. And we are going to be getting a Burning Head, though, going to be trying to roast some of these Rattling Guns as a little send-off. But with that, that is going to be it. Army losses trigger, and the Dark Elves do flee from the field of battle. But that is all she wrote. So let's take a look at the after-battle report here, and just kind of see how things did shake out on both sides. So for the Dark Elf side of things, the Chill of Sontar, unfortunately not getting nearly its value, only getting 500, rather abysmal performance. And it really didn't have that many super easy targets to get at. I mean, the Gracier would have been a good target for it to kind of get some nice damage in, but just to get close to anything, it had to get into range of all of those Rattling Guns, and like the Rattling Guns, 995 and 1800 on those two units, so a lot of value for those ranged units. We'll get to that Avalanche Mortar in just a second, but the Ravagers of Akarth doing a little bit. The rest of the Repeater Crossbows, nothing too great there. All of the Dark Riders, good idea in theory, but they just weren't able to really bridge through that hail of fire from those Rattling Guns and kind of get in. And the Poison, or the Avalanche Mortars, did rather well against them, able to kind of clean them up, make sure that they had to kind of stay constantly on the move to avoid shots, and they weren't always able to do just that. The Bleak Swords actually did some okay work, all things considering. The Supreme Sorceress of Fire got some nice burning heads, but overall just wasn't quite enough to deal with the Skaven. And now the Avalanche Mortar, 3,300 in total damage value dealt this fight, so doing exceptionally well. You usually don't see these guys. The Poison Winds are usually more than enough to deal with things, and they are quite a bit cheaper as well. But the Avalanche Mortars are just such a fun unit, just raining down against the enemy, and they have just amazing burst damage, where the Poison Winds is more kind of it hits, and it does have a bit of burst damage, but it's mostly that damage afterwards that is what racks up the value for the Poison Wind side, while the Avalanche Mortars is much more of a shock value unit. The Rat Ogres as well, doing rather well for themselves, getting 1,200 between two of them. One of them didn't do as well. All of the Night Runners did some pretty decent work as on top of that, and then just kind of all of the Skaven slaves, not really going to be expecting too much. Packmaster, just a roaming terror threat, pretty much keeping all those Dark Riders at bay, and was pretty much at full, I mean, it was at full health at the end of that, so plenty of good value from him. Again, just pretty much just keeping things honest, making sure that those Dark Riders weren't able to really get on top of anything, making sure that they got peeled off nice and easy. Like Warlock Engineer, I think the damage value on that armor isn't quite as accurate, because they're pretty sure they generated a bit more than 59 value from just the armor alone. Usually Mortis Engine is kind of attacked onto the unit value, but I don't think it's working quite well with that Warlock Engineer. The Gracier, not getting a whole lot of value, but just getting some nice summons onto the field. And of course, having that Arcane Conduit as well, kind of just making sure there's plenty of magic. But really, that Warlock Engineer, most of his value wasn't even from the armor. It was mostly from those Howling Warp Gales, making sure that that Supreme Sorcerer's Fire stayed nice and contained. But it's always a nice spell to have, that Howling Warp Gale, especially because like Manticores, Harpies, and the like are very common picks against the Skaven. But that is going to be all I have for you today. I do hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good one.